Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Going Rounds podcast, episode 60. Back at it to talk some UFC action, recap of last week, review of next week, all kinds of combat sports. Got a lot going on. This week, we got to try to fit it in because next week, I don't know what I'm covering. There's no UFC next week. So this weekend, got to enjoy those fights because next weekend, no UFC. I haven't even looked up what the hell's actually going on in combat sports next weekend, but I'm counting on there not being a lot. So who knows? Maybe I'll take the week off and try to create some new stuff to shake up the podcast a little bit after, the 60th episode here. But if not, maybe I'll just have an episode of something else covering whatever news is going on and any fights that might be happening, whether it be boxing or anything else. But for now, we got some UFC to cover. This week has been a weird one, interesting kind of week. I don't know. I guess every week for me is like it's either super crappy, it's just whatever, or it's weird. So I don't know. It always depends on what kind of craziness is happening with work, because home life is cool, man. We just chill. Like there's not a whole lot going on at home. It's just hang out, watch some TV, prep for the podcast, spend time with the wife. That's it. It's like it's chill time during the week after work and stuff. So especially after craziness and drama and pressure and whatever else is happening at work. But regardless, I guess it keeps it interesting. So, but yeah, this week we got to go over this controversial ending to the main event for Noche UFC, which yeah, it was a free title fight and it ended in controversy. So that's always crazy. It was a great fight all the way through. I thought it was interesting as hell. So we're gonna get into that first. We're gonna kind of set things up like we did last week because, again, it was interesting. The fight was, it was crazy. So we have to we have to go through it first thing. So that should be good. And then, there's a bunch of stuff, a few more things in combat sports news this week than there was last week. So that's good. Some things to talk about. And then we'll get a preview of Fiziev versus Gamrot for UFC Fight Night 228 next week. Or, I'm sorry, next week, Saturday. So yeah, should be fun. Let's get right into it. If you're here watching now, don't forget, if you haven't already subscribed, do that right now. Hit that notification bell so you know when I go live or put out any other videos. And make sure you like it and, share it with a friend. Help me continue to grow the channel. Do all the fun stuff everybody tells you to do on YouTube because it's YouTube, so we got to do it, right? That's about the only way we're going to get things done. So don't forget to do all that. And let's see, follow all my social media going on right there. It'll be down at the bottom of the screen while we're going through all the fights and whatnot as well. So go check it out. But let's get started. Noche UFC fight card during Mexican Independence Day that happened last Saturday. It was fun. It was good. It was a success as far as I've heard for the UFC. It was a good one. Dana White, after the Contender Series on Tuesday, did a post-fight press conference and said everything was great. All the viewership, all of the interactions, everything was great when it came to this fight card. So they're gonna do one every year on Mexican Independence Day. That's usually reserved for a boxing match because that's a lot of times what happens. Canelo is, notoriously the one that fights on UFC Independence Day, and that didn't happen. I think De La Hoya used to do it. It was always a Mexican fighter of some sort that would have a boxing match during that time. And this year, UFC took it over. And it sounds to me, from what Dana White's saying, is that's not going to get let go anytime soon. They did a damn good job of, this poster right here. This was the Fight Night poster. and it's pretty dope. I mean, the colors, the graphics, everything looks good, and that helps a lot when people pay attention to things like that, which I do, because I use that art for this show. And so when I see a poster that's like kind of boring, like this week's poster, this week's poster is interesting, but there's not a lot to it. So when it comes down to how well the posters are put together, this one was top notch for sure. A lot of times they do crazy things, like maybe like video game character looking type ones, or they put more people on the poster and stuff like that. There's always different variations. This one though is great. I like the art, I like the color scheme, everything's cool. The Noche UFC I have at the top there, that was a graphic that they put out. I changed it up a little bit to go for my header there like I would normally, but they kept popping it up during the broadcast, and it was cool. So they did a good job. They, at the weigh-ins, they had a mariachi band out there. They did the weigh-in outside instead of inside, so that was different. I feel bad for the people that were out there waiting though, because they were out there for a while trying to get a good spot to be able to watch, and they were outside in the heat, so that kind of sucked. But yeah, they did it right. The mariachi band was cool, and the weigh-ins were good. So all around, good time, good night for that event, and it'll be interesting to see what they do to maybe top it next year, or who knows, maybe we'll have some different Mexican fighters fighting for a title next year, or maybe Alexa Grasso will still be the champ and do it again next year. So good times with that. But again, like I said a little bit ago, there was a controversial end to this title fight, and that always sucks when it's a title fight and it's questionable, because who wants to question who actually won in a title fight? Nobody. You want a dramatic ending to the fight, a exciting ending to the fight, and a 100% sure who won that fight. You want to be sure at the end, and this one was not that way. So there was other interesting fights though, and we will cover those. I'm going to start with Grasso versus Shevchenko. Actually, I'll go over any other ones that are lower than the ones I have visuals for. We'll start with Grasso versus Shevchenko 2. And that fight ended in a draw. So that's what I'm talking about when I say that it was controversial, because there was a 10-8 round in this fight. And if you watch the fight, you might have thought maybe it was the second round, or I think the second round was the one in question that people said could have been a 10-8 round as well, if the fifth round was actually the 10-8 round, which is what was on the scorecards. And it just wasn't warranted. It wasn't a 10-8 round. That's what the narrative is right now, and it is correct. I can see an avenue for it being a 10-8 round. I think it was Chael Sonnen who brought up examples as to why it could have been a 10-8, but everything that he had to say for the reasonings that it could have been a 10-8 round in the fifth round of this fight are also good reasons, and also true for the second round. So it's tough, man. It's just hard to know. It's hard to tell. MMA is a crazy ass sport, and that's what makes it difficult to bet on, but people bet on it all the time. But you don't get draws very often, but when you do, sometimes it's like, all right, I see it. Sometimes you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? This person clearly won, which a lot of people are saying that's the case this night. And sometimes it's like, nobody should have won. That fight sucked. And that's happened way less than the other examples. So here's the scorecards though. So the controversial one here is the first scorecard on the left. Mike Bell was the judge, and he's getting shit on left and right for good reason, because he gave the fifth round a 10-8 for Alexa Grasso, and he gave the second. Okay, so I might be thinking of the third round that Shevchenko basically kind of dominated Grasso. So they were saying, everyone was saying that could have been a 10-8 if the 10-8 was true for round 5 as well. Everyone else, let's see. I don't even know how to say that guy's name on the end. Junichiro Kamu, I don't know. He scored it for Grasso, 48-47. He gave her the 2nd, the 4th, and the 5th round. That's kind of how I saw it at first, but I watched it like 2 more times because I kept hearing so many different things. I kept hearing this reason and that reason and the other reason as to why this didn't, this wasn't a good ending for this fight. So I had to keep going back and watching it to find any little thing that I could work with to lean one way or the other. And I still say it could have still been a draw, just with different scoring, or it could have just been Valentina Shevchenko's win. It was, I feel like it edged out. Valentina edged her out, just barely though, because what Grasso did in the 5th round to end it, which is why Mike Bell saw it as a 10-8, was she got her in a compromising position. Shevchenko put herself in a spot that she did last time, and it wasn't a spinning back kick, but she tried some weird takedown and got her back taken right away. Grasso's really good at reading it, and she did it again. She took her back, she got her down, and she started choking her, and it almost ended up the same way it did the first fight. And she landed a lot of good strikes. But yeah, it was a bit of a different one. I don't know what else to say. It's just a weird fight and a weird ending to everything. So Sal D'Amato scored it for Valentina Shevchenko. So Mike Bell was the deciding scorecard, and he scored it a draw. So they call it a majority draw or something. I don't even know what it's called. Honestly, who cares? It's a fucking draw. Nobody likes a tie. Like, what the fuck? Unless you're losing money on unless you're the team. No, nobody likes a tie. What the fuck? Nobody likes a tie. There's hardly any reason, unless unless you're wanting a team to tie or lose in order for your team to advance in playoffs or some shit like that. Those are the only times a tie matters and a tie is good. If you decided to take a long shot and bet on something being a tie or a draw because it would pay out good money. So I'm sure a couple people did that for this card and said, oh, it's going to end in a draw. That's plus 2,500. I'm going to bet $5 on it and win a shit ton. And this dumb fuck got it because if you're that person, I'm sorry. But Mike Bell made that happen for you. So maybe you should break him off a couple greens to pay him back for being an idiot. So yeah, at first I saw it for Grasso winning. I really did. I felt like she did enough as the champ to retain that belt. But the more I watched it, the more I was like, oh shit, maybe this was a draw. It's just not a draw for the meaning of 10-8 for the 5th round. And that was not okay. Maybe give him a tie in the 5th round, because Valentina came out strong in that 5th round. So, yeah, I don't know. In the end, Grasso retains her belt because it is a draw, and she's not going to lose. It's not going to be a vacant title because nobody won. It's just going to go back to Grasso because it's like the fight didn't even happen now because it was a draw. It's a fucking tie. So the fight might as well not have happened. I'm sure these girls are like, well, the fight definitely happened. They were both busted up. Grasso, you can see, has that big cut under her eye, her forehead, and the middle of her face right here is all red. Yeah, she was busted up. I think she had a cut. Yeah, she has a cut on the side of her eye as well. And she was bleeding a little bit there at the end. So she definitely felt it. They definitely were in a fight, but on paper didn't seem like it because it was a draw. It sucks. Sucks that that's the way that ended. So, and everyone's on this kick right now. debating as to whether or not that was a 10-8 round. Most people say definitely not, and debating as to whether Valentina Shevchenko actually won that fight, because if you look at the scorecards and look at how they were broken down, the only thing that gives Grasso the chance to retain her belt is this draw. Because if Mike Bell would have called it for Valentina, she would have got the belt. So yeah, I guess if he would have called the 5th round for, yeah, even if Grasso would have won, she still would have lost the fight, I guess, technically. So I don't know, man. It's tough. It's a hard one to figure out because there's so many variables. Either way, it was a good fight. Shevchenko definitely looked good in the fight. She held her own, but I still don't think that she was the Valentina of old. I feel like Grasso has something on her, or Grasso's just that good. That might be it. Alexa Grasso might be better than Valentina Shevchenko, and I think Shevchenko has this aura around her because of her title reign and how dominant she's been. Did she lose a step, or is Grasso just that girl that's better than her in the ways that matter and in the ways that, so that solidify her as a better fighter than Valentina? I don't know. She's definitely a damn good boxer, and she's durable. She has a great chin. She can take a lot of punishment. Valentina definitely tried to break her down, and she landed some punches and busted her up, but it didn't do a whole lot. Grasso didn't go anywhere. She was there the whole time. But Grasso, of course, came back with strikes of her own. Big elbow here to the forehead. Her boxing was on point, and she still looked good. So it wasn't like one of these girls should have been like, ugh, what the hell kind of performance was that? They both did well, and that's the thing. And I think that's what makes it difficult for everybody to try to figure out what actually happened. And I didn't do a crazy deep dive. I might have watched it twice, maybe 3 times. One time I probably wasn't really paying enough attention to even base anything off of it, but the other 2 times I definitely watched it closely, and I was just trying to pay attention to everything that was going on. I mean, look at this punch. Valentina's definitely still a scary striker. It's weird because I don't feel like she used her kicks like she normally does, and maybe that's because that's what got her in trouble in that first fight, and she tried that spinning back kick that she usually lands on everybody, and Grasso took advantage and caught her in the middle of that kick and took her back, and she kind of knows what to do with that. So maybe Valentina was like, I'm not going to throw a lot of crazy kicks because I don't want this to happen again. But at the same time, she did get her in compromising positions, and a lot of people were, I think this was I don't remember what round this was. I watched it so many times. All the rounds are just kind of what do you call it? They just kind of blended together in my head. So but this did happen. She did get her in a deep choke. She was completely mounted, and Valentina tried to get her out of there with that choke, and it didn't happen. So that's good on Grasso for having that good defense and not giving in and not tapping. But Grasso did knock her down. She came up with a fucking filthy combination that landed a big right at the end and knocked Valentina back, so much so that she lost her balance, fell backwards. I mean, she got dropped. Really, that's what it was. She got dropped, and she kind of did this little somersault back roll, and stood right back up. But of course, Grasso jumped on her and was trying to take advantage of the fact that she hurt her, that she hurt Valentina. But I think she rushed it a little bit, because then Valentina came back and had good defense. She I think she wound up taking Grasso down, and then was able to kind of catch her breath and you know, just gather everything and have a second to recover. So the knockdown was good, but there wasn't a lot of follow-up, and I think that's why the emphasis on it wasn't as much when it came to the scorecards. But it is a knockdown, you know, and I don't know that Valentina's ever been knocked down like that. So for her not to, you know, this is what I believe everybody was saying, this could have been a 10-8 round too, because of that knockdown. In boxing, you get knocked down, that's an automatic 10-8. So yeah, because, you know, if it's a 10 point must system, so the winner's got to get 10 points and the loser's got to get 9 or less. It could be a 10-8, it could be a 10-7. If it winds up being a 9-9 round, it's because somebody got penalized and then the other person lost a round. That'd be the only way. So I mean, and that kind of shit has happened before. That's led to draws in the past as well. But yeah, this was it's crazy, you know. And then Alexa got her on the ground in a couple different times and got her in position, and actually got her back and started with a started to get sink a choke in like she had in the first fight. So a lot of things happened throughout this fight. You know, she had her down and fully mounted and dropped some ground and pound. She put her in compromising positions, and she definitely had the upper hand at a lot of times throughout this fight. So like I said, Valentina did not look like herself, and I believe she's just not the same fighter when she fights Alexa Grasso. And even though a lot of people are saying that she won this fight, she didn't win by a big margin. And to me, that's what makes this more controversial and more hard to decipher as to whether or not it was actually a draw, whether or not Valentina won. If you just look at the scorecards as they sit and on paper, and you think about the fight, what the scorecards show is that there's one thing that is way off, and that's that 10-8 round in the 5th. And everything else can be justified except for that 10-8 round in the 5th. Now, I believe, I think I saved it, and I didn't put it up here because it was just something extra I wasn't sure if needed to be here. Okay, here it is. So Chael Sonnen says, I have to defend Mike Bell in one regard. That fight was eligible for stopping when Shevchenko was being teed off on. I realized title fights don't get stopped, and she was going to be shown the benefit of the doubt. But if you're curled up and you're taking shots, and that's what Mike Bell saw, maybe he had a vantage point. So what he's saying is, maybe Mike Bell saw that Valentina was on the ground. She was taking big shots. She was defending them, but she was getting dominated. She was getting overwhelmed. And all this was happening, especially after Grasso just teed off on her on the feet. Her boxing was crisp. It was nice. When she put those combinations together, it was great. It was the best thing that you saw throughout the fight. Because Valentina was, you know, landing shots, but it was not the big combinations and the crazy the sequences that Grasso had. At least I felt. But she did well, and there is a case for her winning, especially with that stupid 10-8 round. That's just gonna be the downfall of this fight. You know, Grasso, here's where she got her in that choke in the 5th round. Had her across the face again, like she did the first fight, where they called it a neck crank submission, which makes sense, you know, because she kind of had it across the chin instead of under the chin. So so yeah, that I don't know. I don't even know what to say that hasn't been said. To me, if anything, I guess the one different thing I'll say is that there is still a case for this to have been a draw, just not in the way that it was. That's what I've stuck to. I feel like no matter what, the fight needs to happen again, because either Valentina got horribly robbed And that seems to be the case. Or this really was a draw, and it's overshadowed by the fact that it was such a disgusting scorecard that shouldn't have been. I feel like maybe the 10-8 may not have had to have been given out in any of those rounds. Maybe it was more of a, I believe they can give a 10-10, I believe. I think that's even more rare than a 10-8, 10-7. I don't know. I just feel like one way or another, this should have been a draw. I also saw a way that Grasso won. The second, that third scorecard, the second, the fourth, and the fifth round can be called for her. And that's what I initially thought. That was my initial reaction the first time I rewatched this fight. So, in the end, though, Valentina doesn't get the belt. She said, I think it was 3-2 on my side, but the judges, I think, felt a little bit of pressure because it's Mexican Independence Day. That is why they gave one more to the Mexican fighter. Now, you know, I'm not offended by this, but I feel like it was a bad look on Valentina's part, and I feel like she is the modern day Ronda Rousey when it comes to when you lose your belt. Like, she's not a good loser. She's a sore loser, actually, because she did this during the first time too. Now, she didn't lose this fight, but she did lose in her own eyes, I bet, because she didn't get the belt. She didn't win the belt. The belt wasn't put around her waist, so to her, she lost. And I feel like she's a sore loser. She's a bad loser. She just goes off on a tangent about this, that, and the other thing. Like, first off, just don't say it's because it's Mexican Independence Day. Maybe Mike Bell felt that way. Maybe that's why he did give it to her. I don't know. If that's true, he's more of an idiot than I thought. But it's just like, this was just wasn't a good look for Valentina. I don't think she should have said that. I feel like it's just not a good look. That's all. But they are holding a seminar today, I think. They held a seminar for 10-8 for the Nevada State Athletic Commission. So basically they're basically saying something went wrong. It was not right. And they're admitting that by having a seminar to go over what 10-8s are. So maybe some good will come out of that. Maybe Mike Bell will learn. And it would be nice to hear from him and find out why the fuck he thought it was a 10-8 round. Maybe what Chael Sonnen said was correct. Who knows? But that's how it ended. And it sucks because Grasso is still the champ. That doesn't suck, but it sucks that she's still the champ with that asterisk on it. Like, oh, technically you lost that fight, but you get to keep your belt because someone fucked up and it's called a draw. That's what most people think. I feel like, let's just fight it out again. Let's just get a good ending, a ending that everyone can say this is actually what happened. And Dana White's on track with that. He says that it has to happen. It needs to be the next fight. They need to rematch it again and really find out who's the real winner. And I'm on board with that too. So let's see. We're gonna get to another fight that didn't have a definite decision at the end of it. It became a no contest, and that's this fight here. Edgar Chairez versus Daniel Da Silva. Wound up with Chairez. It was called a win for him by submission, and that's because he had this choke in pretty deep on Da Silva, but the fight got stopped there, and Da Silva's has his hands up in the air, and most of the time you'd be like, what the fuck, dude? You were totally getting choked. It was in deep, but he didn't tap, and I don't know why. He's standing on his feet. They're not on the ground. So, and I think Chairez would have, like, probably been like, hey, he's out if he would have felt his body go limp. Nobody wants to hold a choke there for too long, so, you know, but the ref just stepped in and stopped it. So again, another bad decision on an official's part. So fucking the ref decides to call it when nobody's tapped and nobody's gone out. Nobody went to sleep. What the fuck are you doing? Like, it's harder to tell when their strikes because you don't know if the person's really in or not. It's a bit easier to tell if somebody is getting submitted. They're either going to go to sleep and their body's going to go limp, which is usually why they lift their arm up to see if it's limp or not. And then the other thing is they'll tap. And this one, nobody did any of that. And this motherfucker stops the fight. It was so egregious that they watched the replay after calling it a submission win for Chairez. They watched the replay and they fucking backtracked it and called it a no contest due to a premature stoppage. So that's full on saying the ref fucked up. And that's how it goes. So that fight ended that way too. It's like, what is with these fucking... It's either the refs or the judges that are fucking things up. And it needs to end. The refs have a really hard job. I get it because they're in there and sometimes your reaction is just not right. I mean, sometimes you're off and I get that. But what are these judges doing? They're just sitting there watching the fucking fight and then having the total wrong opinion on it. I have more sympathy for the refs in there fucking up than I do the judges sitting on the side. They have a hard job too. They do have to get it right, and sometimes it's questionable. It could be personal opinion, you thinking, but most of these guys don't have training. Most of these guys don't know what the fuck they're talking about anyway. I've never been officially trained in any of this, but I've watched so much that I'm like, if I can see this, how come this official judge getting paid to watch, pay attention, and have a fucking opinion on this fight, and an opinion that matters, a reason why one guy only gets one check instead of two, a reason why one guy doesn't get to advance in his fucking career because his stupid fucking judge is an idiot and just decides, fuck it, this guy won because I'm not sure, I'll just go with this guy. That's kind of how it seems sometimes. It's ridiculous. And then these fucking refs that don't give people a chance or let somebody get murdered out there, or fucking nobody taps, nobody goes out, and he's like, nope, I'm tired, I gotta piss, let's just call this fight. The fuck? Shit's ridiculous. I hate it, and I wish that something would happen to fix all of this. And I mean, every once in a while they take action and do things like this seminar and whatnot. Will it do any good? Who the fuck knows? Who knows? But something needs to change. I hate this shit. So anyway, let's move on to something a little better, because Tracy Cortez will put a smile on your face because she's a damn good fighter and she's easy to look at, and she's a great person. You listen to her talk and listen to her interviews, and it's fun, it's cool, and I like it. So she had a great fight. Her boxing looked fucking fantastic. I watched this fight like twice too, because I was worried. Tracy Cortez has been out for like 14 months or some shit because she's due to injuries. She had I think she had a hand injury and I don't know, something else. She was injured though for a while. She went and trained in Brazil. She came back rejuvenated and she came out with a vengeance. But I was worried because Jazz DWCS is not like an easy opponent, and I've seen her wreck shit, and she's bigger than Cortez in stature, and she's a beast. So yeah, I was a little bit worried, especially with the big layoff and Tracy Cortez having that undefeated record, and she was able to keep it because she had this fucking crazy good boxing. She kept landing shots on Jazz DWCS, like, and they were great shots, like, you know, throwing her head back, just on the chin, both sides, good combinations, everything was great. Jasmine landed on Cortez as well. That's why Cortez looks a little busted up here. So I think the second round is the only round that Jasmine won. Cortez won the first and third easily. It was a unanimous decision win, and Cortez got that win in great fashion too. Now this picture is showing Cortez pointing up because she was pointing at her hair, because Jazz DWCS, like, I guess was trying to get her in a clinch, and first time she said, her fingers got stuck in the braids. The second time it happened, as Cortez pulled away, while it looked like you can in the replay, you could really see her kind of grab for that part of her head with the braids. And as she grabbed, she pushed her head down, and as Cortez was pulling away, she threw a head kick and landed it. So it was kind of fucked up, because and so they had some words here talking shit. She's like, "What the fuck? You're pulling my fucking hair?" And she's like, "I didn't pull your fucking hair." So they were going back and forth, man. It was funny. And it was funny listening to Tracy Cortez on Ariel Helwani's show discuss it, and she was giving the breakdown of what actually happened. So I went back and watched the fight again a second time after I heard her interview, just so I could watch that whole thing, because I noticed something was going on, but I thought they were just kind of a little bit of banter back and forth, like, hey, let's go, let's fucking do this, like getting fired up. Instead, I find out that she pulled her hair. It was kind of crazy. But yeah, Cortez at the end was very emotional. I feel like everything just came over her, and on top of all of that, she had a friend pass away, not like days before this or something, or a week maybe. But yeah, we're gonna touch on that in a few minutes, because that had something to do with another UFC fighter. But either way, she had a good she did this. She put her face in, her hand over her face. She was crying, and then she leaned her head and hit her face against DC's chest, because she was just so overwhelmed with emotion. It was kind of one of those moments, you kind of feel those emotions with the fighter at that time, and hers were so like out there that it's just like it was hard to not feel that way with her. But anyway, so yeah, she got that dub with the unanimous decision win over Jasmine Jasudavicius, and she continues on her undefeated streak in the UFC. I believe that puts her now at 6-0 in the UFC. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, 6-0 in the UFC. So we'll see what kind of a matchup she gets next. Moving on to another women's fight, Lupi Godinez versus Elise Reed. This was a hell of a fight as well, man. Godinez was just like a superwoman in there, fucking bouncing all over the place, throwing Elise Reed all over the goddamn place like she's a rag doll. And yeah, Godinez just dominated. She got this crazy submission in with the armbar, and everyone was like, there's no way that Reed is getting out of this, and she did. But Godinez said she felt like she broke her arm. So whether or not that's true, I don't know. But in the second round, she wound up getting a rear naked choke and submitting her to finish up the fight and get the win. So Lupi Godinez is, stays in that win column over Elise Reed with a crazy ass fight. So if you didn't watch that one, go check it out. It was a good fight. Moving on to Kyle Nelson versus Fernando Padilla. So this one was a unanimous decision win for Kyle Nelson, but for the most part, I mean, it's just some action, some back and forth. Nothing crazy happened in this one, but it was another loss for one of the Mexican fighters in Fernando Padilla, and I think that puts him at 1-1 in the UFC. Yeah, because he got a win over Julian Erosa, which was pretty exciting and a pretty fantastic finish for him. TKO by punches back in April, and that was his debut. And but he just didn't have enough to beat Kyle Nelson, who winds up being shit. Yeah, he's been in the UFC for a bit, so I don't even know what his record is in the UFC, but he's 15-5 overall, and he gets another win here against Fernando Padilla. So then we go into Daniel's Zellhuber versus Christos Giagos. This one wound up a second round submission by Anaconda choke, which you see him setting up here, and he sunk it in. anaconda chokes are interesting, man. The way that the setup is and the positioning for it, you know, just to see somebody get a choke that way is kind of crazy, man. But Zellhuber got that choke, wound up getting the win. Yeah, in the second round. Then we get to the 18-year-old UFC fighter. Fucking crazy to know he's 18, man. And I mean, I see a lot of people out there making fun of him because of his looks and the way he talks, but all I gotta say is homeboy's doing the damn thing. It's his third fight in the UFC, I believe, or second. Third fight in the UFC. He came off the Contender Series, which he fought when he was 17. And yeah, he's got 3 fights in the UFC now. He's 2-1 officially in the UFC, with his first win being by submission against Jay Perrin. He got kind of dominated in his second fight against Christian Rodriguez and lost by unanimous decision there. But he gets a win here against Terrence Mitchell in a big fucking way too. It's like you could just tell the craziness of this dude and how he fights just by this picture, man. And you know, you see pictures of him in Dana White's Contender Series, and it's funny. He's just jumping and flying all over the place. You know, like an 18-year-old kid would, I guess. So, but yeah, he looked pretty impressive in this fight. Gets some big ground and pound in on Terrence Mitchell, which I believe was Terrence Mitchell was, yeah, he was coming off a loss. So he is now 0-2 in the UFC, which is not good. So, who knows if he'll get another chance. Let's see. I want to say those are his only 2 fights in the UFC, and he's lost them both this year, once in July and once in September. So we'll see if they give him one more chance to maybe either get that 3rd loss in a row or come back with a win. As for Rosas, though, gets his big ground and pound, big knockdown to get to this position, and winds up getting the TKO win in the first round, in 54 seconds into the first round. That's fucking impressive, man. I hope he keeps working on his game, and he's got a lot of confidence, and he talks about all the time how the plan's always been for him to become a world champion and become a superstar in MMA. And I feel like if he keeps it up, he keeps improving, he's definitely on his way to doing that. Being as young as he is, he's got a lot of room for improvement, and he's got a lot of opportunity to do a lot with his career. So I hope he doesn't overwork himself and overextend too much, and he uses that one loss so far as a learning point, and he continues to get better. And hopefully they give him gradual jumps in competition, so he doesn't get pushed too fast. He's still young, he's only 18. I'd like to see him get that slow burn and see where he can take it and see where he goes with it. So yeah, then we get to the co-main event, which was Jack Della Maddalena versus Kevin Holland. And Jack Della didn't look as impressive as he normally does, but Kevin Holland just was kind of absent, man. He wasn't out there doing all the crazy strikes and just high energy fighting that he usually does. So it was kind of, it wasn't boring, but Jack Della was definitely doing his part, but he didn't look like the world beater that he has in the past. And Kevin Holland just looked like he was content and was like, well, I'm not getting knocked out and I'm not getting put to sleep, so I'm just gonna get through this fight and see how it goes. The scorecards don't show that. It was a split decision win, but like I said, I feel like both fighters were not all in like they normally would be, like they have been in the past for any of their fights. But a lot of the big offense was happening from Jack Della Maddalena, as you can see here. Big punches, connections, and everything else. JDM, he definitely won that fight. And I just felt like it was going to be more fireworks and a way better fight than it was. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't like as great as I thought it could be. So that about does it for you. Noche UFC and all the controversy that surrounded that. So we'll move on here to some combat sports news. And we got to start with something a little sad, which is what I was speaking about earlier with Tracy Cortez. This is Henry Cejudo, if you didn't know, and that is his sister with him in that picture. And unfortunately, his sister passed away. I guess she had a long fight with cancer, and she passed away. She looks like she was pretty young. She was a beautiful woman. And it sucked because I watched Henry Cejudo talk about it, and it seemed like they were very, very close. Obviously, it's his sister, and regardless, you're going to be upset when something like that happens to a family member. And I'm sure that he had to watch her go through the struggles of fighting cancer and all the treatment and everything else. So my heart goes out to him, man, him and his family. And Tracy Cortez was really close with her and Cejudo and stuff. She was very, very upset and emotional about all that, as you should be, with somebody that you're close to passes away due to something like, cancer sucks, man. It's horrible. It just takes people way too early. And it's just horrible. So you see it everywhere. Fuck cancer, and it's true. Like that sucks. And I would hope that sometime in the near future, if people can stop being money hungry and come up with a way, or let the way come through to be able to fight cancer better than we do now. And let people survive, because it's a horrible disease and a horrible sickness. And to see somebody like this get taken, it just sucks. And I've had family members pass away, and I'm sure everyone knows somebody who's passed away or has cancer now, and it sucks. So I just wanted to give my condolences to Henry Cejudo. Beyond the king of cringe and any of the stuff I don't like, he's a human. He's still, I've seen him be a really good dude. He's not like a lot of other guys that I dislike. I don't really dislike him either. I think he's a great fighter. I just don't like the cringe stuff. But I just felt like I needed to throw it out there. And it's just sad. It's just sad. It sucks to see somebody have to go through that and deal with the loss in their family that way. So but yeah, we got some BKFC action going on this weekend, actually tomorrow night. I saw the weigh-ins happen today, and everyone in the main event made weight, I believe. So everything's official and we're good to go. We got Lorenzo Hunt versus Chris Camozzi. Chris Camozzi being a former UFC fighter, now bare knuckle, fighting for bare knuckle. It is a cruiserweight championship, so it's 185 pounds. So yeah, this Lorenzo Hunt, he's a big motherfucker, man. Like for 185, he looks pretty huge. But Camozzi's kind of the same. And yeah, let's see. I'm trying to get to the BKFC site. Is a little tough to navigate sometimes. Chris Camozzi's 6'3". Damn. And Lorenzo Hunt is only 6 foot. So I mean, these guys are bangers though, and BKFC is always fun to watch. Looks like Chris Camozzi is undefeated, 2-0 in BKFC. And holy shit, Lorenzo Hunt is 10-1-0. Damn, I didn't realize he had that many BKFC fights. Holy shit. All right. And he's got wins over people like Hector Lombard, Joe Riggs, Mike Richmond, and now he's fighting Chris Camozzi. So he does well against the ex-UFC fighters. Let's see. Then we got Josh Copeland, who I believe was in the UFC at one point in time as well. He's 1-1. His last fight was a loss in April to Ben Rothwell. And they're fighting at 206. So 205, I guess. That's considered heavyweight. All right. And his opponent is Steve Herelius. He looks pretty big himself. And he is 1-0 in the BKFC. So that should be a decent fight. As far as everybody else, not a lot of big names. Not any names that I recognize. So yeah. Check that out if you're into BKFC. There is some dudes that look like they just got out of prison on the undercard. Legit, like, look at those last two fights, man. Those guys look like they straight came from the penitentiary. Which is what I always say when it comes to BKFC. But it makes it funny. For me, I laugh at it, so it's hilarious. But if you're into BKFC, which I have watched the event live before, it is exciting. It is entertaining. It doesn't hold my attention for some reason. I don't go out of my way to watch it, but whenever I'm sitting around and I see it's on, I'm like, ooh, I'll check this out. And then when the former UFC fighters are fighting, the big names and stuff, I do watch for those. But yeah, we'll see if I catch this one. It depends on what I'm doing. But that's it for BKFC. Now we got Dana White's Contender Series. 5 fights like always. We had a heavyweight fight, strawweight women's, looks like lightweight, flyweight, couple lightweight fights. So yeah, overall we had 4 contract winners, and then just one fight that nobody won the contract, which is kind of strange because this women's fight here, Luciano versus Alencar, that wound up being a fucking draw. But I guess they saw something in Luciano. She was losing the fight initially, and I guess she had a big comeback, and that impressed Dana, so he gave her the contract. As you can see, in the first matchups here, Fiziev versus Velasco. Fiziev got the win and got the contract as well, which that was by submission here. That's a pretty nasty prank on that dude's neck. Just being a big guy like that, a big heavyweight, and for him to be able to manipulate that guy's body that way, and the other guy being big as well, like, pretty nice. Good technique and good submission there. So submission win for Fiziev to get the contract as well. And then we have damn, I lost my spot here. Give me a second. Where the hell? Okay, here we go. Oh, nope, that's not it either. Damn. I lost my spot and now I can't find it. Here we go. Okay. So it was Kenan Krzyzewski versus Dylan Montello. Yeah, this was a pretty good back and forth fight, but in the end, let's see, I'm losing my spot left and right here. I call him KK because Kenan and Krzyzewski, I don't know how to say his fucking name. He winds up getting the win though. 252 of round 1 with a submission. It looks like, yep, rear naked choke. So, and he wound up getting a contract as well. Like I said, 4 out of the 5 fighters. Let's go with De Silva versus Silva. Yeah, that's a tough one there too. We had a Brazilian versus, oh, it doesn't even say, Igor De Silva, who is 8-0, versus Jonata Silva, who is 8-2. I did catch the end of this one, and Igor De Silva got the contract. He was super emotional about it. One of those ones where you're like, oh fuck, man, you're gonna make me cry here. But yeah, these big left, big strikes, ground and pound. He winds up getting a TKO finish in the second round. So yeah, and then we get to the women. Pretty big exchanges on this one. It was a pretty exciting fight, actually. Like I said, Alencar was getting the best of Luciano at first, but Luciano came back with the big, had the big comeback, and they wind up getting, well, here's a big punch from Luciano, and then they wind up getting a, let's see, what was it? So it looks like in round 3, Luciano gets a 10-8 round, leading the judges' score 28-28. So it looks like it was a unanimous draw. Yep. So anyway, sorry, I got lost there reading one of those things. But yeah, and then Luciano winds up getting the contract even though it was a draw. The only explanation I heard was maybe it's because Luciano's like in her 20s and I think Alencar's in her 30s. Maybe they saw a little more out of Luciano with that, underdog comeback there. Who knows? But she did get the contract. So then at the end here, we have Daniel Allen versus Jacoby Jones. And that's Daniel Allen landing that big punch on Jacoby Jones. Fuck, man. That's a great picture. That's a hell of a punch. You can tell he hit him right in the chin. And it looks like Allen got the win. Let's see. He got a decision win, but did not get a contract, which is kind of crazy because we had a draw and they gave a contract to one of those fighters. And Allen gets an actual win here over his opponent. Maybe they just weren't impressed by his performance. I'm not sure. But yeah, he did not get a contract. So, and that's it for this week's Dana White Contender Series recap. Dana White's Contender Series comes on every Tuesday. You can watch on ESPN Plus. There's always 5 fights on the card. They're usually pretty good because everyone's out there to try to get that contract, so they're trying to impress, and it's pretty exciting when you get a chance. Check it out. Arizona time for me, it comes on at 5 p.m. so I'm usually pretty busy at that time trying to do stuff. But I try to catch it when I can, and like I said, it's fun, it's exciting. I'll go back and watch whenever I get a chance to, especially when I hear that there was a lot of good fights on it. So check it out anytime you get a chance. We'll move on now to some Bellator action. Now, when it comes to Bellator, this is Bellator 299. They are doing a Bellator 300, which is a pretty big card with, I think, like 3 or 4 title fights on it. It's going to be crazy. But yeah, this one's, it's weird because this one is Bellator Dublin. It's happening at the 3 Arena in Dublin, Ireland, which is what they usually do. But it's not even like themed out like an Irish card. It's kind of weird. But anyway, Bellator 299, right? Bellator 300 is going to be a gigantic event with all kinds of title fights and everything else. All the big names, all the big stars going to be on it. And then you got Bellator 301, which they just announced not too long ago. It seems like it's going to be a pretty good card as well. And then it sounds like that's it for Bellator. They were in talks with PFL for PFL to basically just integrate them into the PFL and take over that entire organization. And it sounded like all of a sudden that wasn't going to happen. I saw a post and a couple things in a couple places saying that the deal is dead. PFL is no longer buying Bellator, and that Bellator was just going to fold completely after, whenever they decided that their last event was, which hasn't been officially announced yet, so I'm not sure. But Bellator is coming to an end regardless, from what I understand. So, and it sounds like PFL is gonna just bring in everybody they can and overtake that organization and get rid of Bellator. So I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens there. But it's been an ongoing thing, and everything I've heard says that it's still an ongoing kind of conversation with PFL. Maybe some of the good, really bigger names and great fighters will come over to the UFC. Who knows? Like MVP, they were talking about MVP coming over to the UFC, stuff like that. So who knows? But this fight is going to be Johnny Eblen versus Fabian Edwards. Johnny Eblen is 13-0, undefeated, and he's everyone is talking about this guy as being one of the greatest up and comers right now. So Jorge Masvidal talks about him like he is the best everywhere right now, and that nobody's going to beat him. So we'll see how that goes, but so far undefeated, fighting Fabian Edwards, who is the current middleweight champion. I'm sorry, not middleweight, welterweight champion for the UFC. Leon Edwards, his brother. So you know, you got a good family of fighters there, with Fabian Edwards fighting to try to get the strap like his brother Leon. So also on that card, we got Aaron Pico versus Pedro Carvalho, which that should be an interesting fight. Aaron Pico is always fun to watch, even though he kind of started off with a bang and then dwindled a little bit, and now he's on a comeback, trying to you know, get back to that exciting part of his career against Pedro Carvalho, who is pretty badass. He is 13-7, but he's coming off a loss to Jeremy Kennedy earlier this year. And yeah, I mean, I've heard nothing but good things about Pedro Carvalho. I don't know that I've actually watched him fight, but yeah, Aaron Pico is coming off a win back in April versus James Gonzalez. So see how that fight goes. Let's see who else we got. Oh, Sinead Kavanagh, which is no surprise being in a Dublin card, versus Sarah Collins, who is 4-0. So undefeated Australian there for you against Sinead Kavanagh. She only has one fight in the Bellator so far. So that's a tough fight against Sinead, who is 9-5. Let's see who else we got. Peter Queally, of course. You can't have a Dublin card without Peter Queally on it, versus Danielle Michelli. And let's see, Monsar Bornawi versus JJ Wilson. Gregory Babane versus Charlie Ward. And yeah, that's about it that I recognize. There's a lot of guys at the bottom. Holy fuck, there's a lot of fights on this card. What the hell? There is 21 fights on this card. That is fucking insane. It's gonna be like a marathon of a fight card. Holy shit. And a lot of these names are not well known, so yeah, I don't know. Fuck. Okay, well, true Bellator fashion there. Let's move on to some Israel Adesanya. He finally spoke out on his brother's podcast. It's a short one if you want to go check it out on YouTube at The Last Style Bender, or Freestyle Bender YouTube channel. It says right there at the bottom. They're always usually short and to the point. Yeah, so he talked a little bit about his loss. He said it was like a bad dream, not even a nightmare. A nightmare, you're scared. I was just trying to hit the guy, and it just felt like noodle arms. And he talked about like his thought process when he got dropped. He said that like it was just like it was like surreal kind of, like he didn't even feel like out of body experience type shit, I guess. And he said as soon as he got hit, then he realized that he was getting hit more, like that Sean Strickland followed up and continued to hit him. And he was just like, this guy's still hitting me? Like, he's hitting me right now. So like it just wasn't clicking for him, I guess. So, and his coach told him in the corner that, you know, basically it's just bad positioning, bad timing. I guess he tried a combination that he shouldn't have done at the moment and got caught. He tried to talk to the ref, showing him a thumbs up while he's in the middle of getting hit. Is kind of weird, as he told he said, you know, you can check the clip out somewhere that you could see him giving the thumbs up and then he gets punched. So it's like, it's kind of a weird thing, but yeah, it's just nice to actually hear from him. He takes it in stride, you know. He's like one of those guys. It's like too cool to be like, fuck, I'm so upset, you know. Like he does that at times, but at the same time, maybe that's why he rubs people the wrong way a little bit sometimes. But I was just happy to actually hear from him. you know, he sounds like he's good to go, like he's fine. He's just gonna take some time and then come back. So who knows what happens there. Didn't divulge a lot of information, but at the same time, at least he came and spoke out. So that's good for him. You know, just I saw this and I had to kind of bring it up. Yeah, that is definitely a rough patch, like it says. It says Adesanya is now 4-3 in his last 7 fights after going 20-0 in his first 20 pro MMA fights. That's tough, man. I hate to see that when guys are like undefeated and they wind up being the champ and they're still undefeated, and then all of a sudden they get beat somewhere, and then it kind of gets in their head, or they lose a step because of it or something like that, and next thing you know they have like kind of a shitty record. At least it's not a losing record for him, but yeah, it's just that is rough patch. It does not even do it justice. Like it's tough, man. It sucks, but yeah, it's definitely a rough patch for Izzy. I hope he comes back. I hope he turns it around. I hope he gets back on track and gives it a few more good years of big wins and showing his greatness, and then then he can ride off into the sunset and do his thing, whatever else he wants to do. But some of these things are a little bit of a downer sometimes, but I want to get into something that's a little more upbeat, a little more exciting. And I want to act like Dana White real quick and be like, "What's up, guys? I got an announcement to make." I can't even do it. I can't even do it without I feel like a fucking idiot, because I have secondhand embarrassment for him when he's doing this. If you ever watch any of his announcements, he starts yelling and screaming. It's fucking, at first I just laughed, but now I'm just like, I want to hear what he has to say, but I'm just like, dude, come on, please stop this. He does it for the fucking Fridays. He does it for the now you know. If you don't know, now you know. He does it for any fight announcements. He just screams, and I don't get it. Like, it's just the excitement is good, man. I'm happy that you're excited. I'm happy, but whatever. You got big news. It's good, but damn. Anyway, these announcements were these are what he announced today. So yeah, it's official. Or was it today or yesterday? I think it was yesterday. It's official. UFC 295, Saturday, November 11th in New York City. We get Yuri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira. That's going to be badass, because Pereira's just a beast, as we already know with all these. He's been so active lately. We've talked about him a ton. Fucking Yuri Prochazka's been out on injury. One of the worst injuries that the UFC has ever seen. That's what fucking Dana White said. It's just like, he was also supposed to be out for like over a year, and I don't even know that it's been a year. So, okay. But yeah, he's back. And Yuri's a really unique type of fighter, so this should be interesting to watch him and Alex Pereira go at it. Fuck, man. It could be over quick, or it could be over quick, or it could be a fucking hell of a beating on one end or the other. I don't know. I hope it doesn't turn out to be boring like some of these fights do sometimes. So that was announcement number 1. And that's also the co-main event to the main event, which we already knew about. This wasn't part of the big announcements, but I brought it up just because this is the main event for Saturday, November 11th in New York. UFC 295, John Jones versus Stipe Miocic. Now it has a great fucking co-main event. 2 title fights on that card, and it keeps rolling, man. Fucking the title fights keep coming. We got the December card in that announcement as well. Pantoja versus Brendan Royval. I forgot Pantoja's first name. Alexandre Pantoja versus Brendan Royval. Saturday, December 16th in Las Vegas. UFC 296. That is a co-main event. It'll be a 5-round fight for the title, the flyweight title. And then for the main event, we get Leon Edwards versus that bitch Colby Covington for the welterweight title. It's about time we get Leon Edwards fighting again, defending his belt. And fucking Colby's been out for quite a while too, because he's a little bitch that likes to take out restraining orders on people because he can't handle a punch in the street for running his fucking mouth. So when Gamebred tells you shut the fuck up or get dealt with, and then you get dealt with because you don't listen, and you call the cops and press charges and put felonies on people and talk about having brain damage because you're a little fucking cunt. So yeah, fuck Colby Covington. I hope you get your ass beat by Leon Edwards, but in all reality, this could be a really good fight. Colby does have the tools to win against Leon Edwards. I can't deny the talent. I can't deny his abilities. So he is a really good wrestler, but we've seen him get hit, we've seen him get hurt, and we've seen him bitch out. So will that be the thing that happens? I don't know. I would fucking love to see Leon Edwards just murder this motherfucker. I would love to see it. But Leon Edwards is not fierce like that, and he's gonna make it a fight. But who knows? Give him that fucking Mauro Usman treatment and get that head kick in when he's coming in for a fucking takedown. Let's see it. Let's do it. Knock his ass out cold. That's what I would love to see, but we'll see what happens. That's the main event for UFC 296 in Vegas in December. So that makes 4 title fights for the next 2, or for the last 2 UFCs of the year. And on top of that, next month in October, we get Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira 2. So we have 5 fucking title fights to end off the year, which crazy shit, right? I mean, 5 title fights in less than like 3 months. Less than 3 months, I think. Less than 2 months if you count the actual time frame between when Makhachev Oliveira happens all the way up to Edwards and Covington. That's less than 2 months of time that happens between those 3 fights, with 5 fucking title fights at the end. That's insane, man. That's a lot of fucking fights. That's a lot of titles. So yeah. And then we got this to talk about. We got fucking, I haven't even got to the recap or the preview of this week's fight yet, which we'll blow through that one a little quick because, you know, it's not the biggest card in the world. But I wanted to talk about this real quick because it is kind of cringy and stupid. And it involves Jon Jones, who we just spoke about. NBA player James Johnson claims he'd beat Jon Jones because he is a black belt in karate and he's been fighting since he was 6 years old. This motherfucker is 6'8". He's 36 years old. He's a forward for the Indiana Pacers. And the look on his face is exactly what I did when I heard about this. Like, the fuck are you talking about, dude? You are not beating Jon Jones. Jon Jones will fucking murder you. I don't know what the fuck this tall, lanky motherfucker thinks he's gonna do, because he's definitely not no LeBron James. And he looks, I mean, yeah, he's tall. Good for you. You should be playing basketball. Shut up. Stay in your lane, motherfucker, because you ain't beating Jon Jones. He says, I think I could beat him for real, but like I said, with a year of training defense, I just need ground defense. Okay, because, you know, Jon Jones takes everything to the ground. The fuck? Where the fuck have you been living? You don't watch these fights, do you? Jon Jones wrecks people on their feet, and he can also take you down. Like he took down a fucking Olympian in Daniel Cormier. But did you see that head kick, you stupid fuck? Like, you're gonna get fucked up. So don't do it. Jon Jones wouldn't even entertain it because he knows what he'll do. He'll break your twig ass and then push you aside and hope he doesn't get charges on him because he's just fucking stupid. I don't know what this guy thinks. He says, Jon Jones started learning how to use your hands and feet. What, after college? Like, I've been punching and kicking since I was 5 or 6 years old. The same thing for me, though, is the opposite for him because he's been wrestling for that long, learning all these wrestling moves and things like that for that long. For me, I started learning the wrestling game and all that in middle school. The jiu-jitsu, you know, has a big advantage there because no one wants to get on the floor. No, your dumbass shouldn't get on the floor and doesn't want to Everyone else is cool because they know what to do down there, you fucking dumbass. But as long as I can keep him from going on the floor, I win. All right. Tell me how many times somebody stood up and with John Jones and beat him. I don't think you can do that. Can you do that? Nah, you can't do that because you're dumb. You're fucking dumb. And if it was you get locked in a room with John Jones, you ain't coming out. You're definitely not coming out without being bloodied up and having some broken limbs. That's all there is to it. Fuck the ground game. Stand up. You'll still get your ass beat. That's all I gotta say about that, because that shit is stupid. Let's get to UFC Fight Night 228. Fiziev. I always say Fiziev because that's how it looks like. That's how it's spelled. So that's what you want to say. It's Fiziev versus Gamrot. Yeah. This should be a good main event, man. I like this fight. Both these guys are badass, and I think that they're gonna put on a good fight for sure. But as far as my pick, I don't know, man. I tend to favor Fiziev, but you know, he had that fight against Justin Gaethje, and I believe that might have been his last fight. It was his last fight against Justin Gaethje, but we'll cover that here in a minute or two. Let's see what's happening in the undercard. We got an interesting women's fight. Second fight of the night at strawweight. Mizuki Inoue versus Hannah Goldie. And for any of you interested in the OnlyFans Fighter of the Week, that'd be Hannah Goldie. Go check it out. Her Instagram's nice too. So she's a hottie. She's a decent fighter. If you're not into chicks with muscles, though, you might not like her, but give it a shot. Go check it out. So we got that fight going on. Let's see. We got Mohammed Usman, brother of Kamaru Usman, big heavyweight, was a Ultimate Fighter winner. Coming off of 2 wins, one against Junior Tafa being his last win. Holy shit! April 23rd. I'm sorry, April 22nd. April of 2023. Let's see. He's undefeated in the UFC right now. And yeah, he's the Ultimate Fighter winner as well. I forget what season, but he's fighting Jake Collier, and Jake Collier is on a fucking 3-fight losing streak. So here's a chance for Mohammed Usman to put on a fucking show and get somebody kicked out of the UFC. But Collier's a good fighter. I mean, I've watched him fight a couple times, and he's lost to Andrei Arlovsky, Chris Barnett, and Martin Buday. So not like he's losing to nobodies. His last win was against Chase Sherman, but he really does have a salty ass record. So yeah, this might be like last chance time for Jake Collier, and he doesn't have an easy opponent in Mohammed Usman. We'll see how that fight goes. And then you got Tim the Dirty Bird Means versus Andre Fialho. Tim Means 32-15. Holy shit, that's a lot of fights. And he is also on a 3-fight losing streak. So this might be last call for him as well. And Andre Fialho is 16-7, also on a 3-fight losing streak. I see a fucking pattern here. What the fuck is going on? These are like do or dies for most of these guys right now. Oh shit. Dan Argueta versus Miles Johns. Argueta being 9-1. Coming off a no contest with Ronnie Lawrence, which was a premature stoppage again. There's been a lot of those this year. I don't know what the fuck is happening. Maybe they're just calling it out more this year. I'm not sure. 9-1 for him versus Miles Johns, who is 13-2, coming off a win over Vince Morales. So decent fights on the undercard. Nothing too crazy, but nothing horrible. Let's get to the main card. Oh shit. Already I screwed up. That's awesome. Let me fix this here. I do not know how that happened, but we're gonna fix it really fast, I hope. There we go. There it is. That's the right one. Ricardo Ramos. I don't know if it's a silent R or not. Against Charles Jourdain. Let's see. Ramos is 16-4. This is a featherweight fight, and he's coming off a win over Danny Chavez back in June of 2022. So it's been a minute. That was a win by spinning back elbow. Damn. Kind of a win and loss record, back and forth. A lot of finishes though. Few decisions, not bad. Versus Charles Air Jourdain, 14-6, Canadian fighter. Coming off a win over Kron Gracie. That's right. That was that kind of funky ass fight. But yeah, there's that spinning back elbow by Ramos, which was his last win. And then you got Charles Jourdain. Jesus, man. What is going on with this? Looks like it's time for me to clear out all of my stuff and start from scratch, because sometimes when I copy and paste these things over and over again and just switch out some of the things or some of the sources that I use, it gets a little funky on me, and that's what's happening tonight. But it's all good. We keep rolling. Charles Jourdain here against Duho Choi, I believe. Yeah, this was a while back in 2019. TKO win by punches. But he's coming off that win over Kron Gracie, where Kron Gracie just kind of butt scooted around the damn cage. Before that, he was on a 2-fight losing streak, though. So I hope he comes back and really shows what he can do, since it wasn't much of a fight against Kron Gracie. Moving on. Brian Battle versus AJ Fletcher. Brian Battle being a Ultimate Fighter winner as well. He's 9-2 overall. This is a welterweight fight. He's coming off a win over Gabriel Green. Before that, he lost to Renat Bakardinov. Jesus. But yeah, he looked like it was a KO by punches in his last fight, and that was a 14-second fight. So that was a hell of a fight for him. And his opponent, AJ Fletcher, is 10-2. And he's coming off a win to Themba Garimbo. But he had a couple losses before that. So, you know, this is a pretty evenly matched fight. Brian Battle here with his shorter hair in that last fight for him, because he had the long hair before that. I guess he cut it when he lost. So it was one of those things. He wasn't cutting it because he wasn't losing. But this was that 14-second win for him. Big punch there for that KO. And then you got AJ Fletcher. Nice little uppercut going on there. This should be a really good fight, especially if Brian Battle comes out like he did in his last fight. 14-second KO. Always exciting when you get something that fast. Now we'll move on to the women. We got Marina Rodriguez versus Michelle Waterson-Gomez. Rodriguez is 16-3. Coming off... Oh, she's on a 2-fight losing streak, actually. Lost to Virna Jandiroba and Amanda Lemos. But this is a rematch fight against Michelle Waterson. She beat her once before. That was in 2021. She got a unanimous decision win over Michelle Waterson, and I do remember this fight. And Michelle Waterson did not look good in that fight whatsoever. And it's kind of been that way for her. But she is 18-11, so that's kind of, oof. It's a lot of losses. She's on a 3-fight losing streak once again, fighting for her life here. Oh shit, I pushed the wrong button. But there you go, another big punch from Marina Rodriguez. Yeah, so she's got some good striking. Michelle Waterson's gonna have to watch out for that. But Michelle Waterson is good with those big kicks to the body, to the head. Her kicks are fantastic. She's super flexible in that case. And she's got some big legs to put some power behind those kicks. But like I said, she's coming off a 3-fight losing streak, so this is like a do or die must win for her. Luana Pinheiro, Amanda Lemos, and Marina Rodriguez were her last 3 losses. She hasn't won since 2020 against Angela Hill, which is where this picture's from. Yeah, so it's been a minute since she's won. Before that win, she had 2 losses in a row too. So, man, that is her biggest win streak was before she was even in the UFC. She's beat people like Angela Magana, Paige Van Zandt, Courtney Casey, Felice Herrig, Karolina Kovacevic, but I mean, she's lost to big names like Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Carla Esparza. So, it's tough for Michelle Waterson, the karate hottie. She's definitely a hottie, but not with that new haircut of hers. I think she needs to go back to the longer hair. She has not had good luck since she's got that haircut. If you're on a 3-fight losing streak, man, you got to change something up, and I think the hairs should be the first thing. But moving on to the co-main event, we got Bryce Mitchell versus Dan Ige. Bryce Mitchell has had a lot of controversy around him lately. He's been out on social media. There's been videos going around of him breaking sliding glass doors at his at his house that his ex-girlfriend was in, that she kicked him out, wouldn't give him his dog. Some kind of craziness going on there. And then he called the cops on her for showing up at his house while he's in his fight camp. She killed some of his trees that he's been growing for years. She's threatened to kill his dogs. She's threatened to kill him. He put a video out about it, talking about how somebody should help him because this bitch is crazy basically. But yeah, Bryce Mitchell 15-1 besides all of that controversy. 15-1, his last fight being his first loss. So, and that was to Ilya Topuria, and he lost by submission, arm triangle in the second round. So we'll see if he can get back in that win column and overcome all this drama in his life as well. But Dan 50K Ige, it's a funny nickname too. 17-6. He's on a 2-fight winning streak right now. Before that, he lost 3 in a row though, so he does have the potential of losing. All of his losses being by unanimous decision though. So hopefully this fight doesn't go the distance. Otherwise, it's less of a chance for Dan Ige to win. But we got Bryce Mitchell here. Body kick on Andre Feely. That was a couple fights ago for him. He's beaten people like Barboza, Feely, Charles Rosa. He's got some good wins on his record. Plus, he's one of the few people to pull off a twister submission in the UFC. And I think I thought he had done it. He had gotten a twister twice, but I guess it was just once, not once. So yeah, he's good on the ground for sure. Ige's got to stay away from taking it to the ground, but Dan Ige's got some good striking, and I feel like this should be a pretty good matchup here. This was him against Nate the Train, and then against Damon Jackson, both of them being his last 2 wins in the UFC. So I'm looking forward to this fight. I like watching Bryce Mitchell win, even though he's a bit of a crazy character. And Dan Ige is always exciting as well. So this should be a really good fight. We'll see how that goes. And then we get to the main event. Rafael Fiziev versus Mateusz Gamrot, not Gamrot. Yeah, this one's gonna be exciting. I feel like it's either gonna be an all-out war that goes the distance and everyone's beat the fuck up, and we just got to figure out who might have hit who a little harder and a little more, or it's gonna end abruptly at some point in time. I kind of feel like that's how this is gonna go. But Fiziev is 12-2. Like I said, coming off a loss to Justin Gaethje. I believe. Oh no, that his only 2 losses are in the UFC. one being his debut fight and one being his very last fight. But against Justin Gaethje, that was a fucking war, and I hope he is not a changed man after fighting in that war with Justin Gaethje, because some guys do not come out the same, that's for damn sure. And you got Mateusz Gamrot, 22-2, coming off a win over Jalen Turner. He's got a loss against Beneil Dariush. Yeah, him as well. His only 2 losses in his career are in the UFC, as well as being his debut fight. So him and Fiziev kind of have that same direction in career, which is pretty crazy. Makes his fight even a bit crazier. But Fiziev has, you know, all of his strikes are good. You know, he's gonna kick you, he's gonna punch you, he's gonna throw knees, he's gonna throw everything at you, because that's who he is. He does everything and he does it well. Let's check out his loss was by a majority decision, but his wins: KO by punches, KO spinning wheel kick, KO punches. He's got a few decisions mixed in, but then he's got one of his other losses, TKO spinning back kick. But then he got wins, KO, KO, TKO, TKO. A lot of TKO and KO wins. So that's good for us as fans, because you might see some really good action here and getting a good finish. This is a big punch against Bobby Green. So yeah, I mean, he's got some power. As you can see, he's got a good physique. So, you know, you're going to get a lot of action out of him. We move to Gamrot. Like I said, he is 22-2. So a few more fights, a little bit more experience than Fiziev. But Fiziev's been impressive lately, even with that loss against Justin Gaethje. And Gamrot's got kind of the same skills, man. This is a really close matchup, skill-wise, and, you know, with everything, really. It's a really even matchup. So that's why it'd be tough for me to bet on this one. But I probably lean more towards Fiziev, just because, I don't know, I gravitate more towards his style. And even though these guys are kind of the same guy, for some reason I see a little more in Fiziev's style and fighting. So I don't know. I mean, just for me, myself, I don't know. I feel like I'm going to start making picks here. Maybe don't bet on my picks, but I'm thinking just to kind of add that little bit of an element to going over the fights and stuff, I might actually add in who my pick is. Maybe when I show that first slide of, you know, the first visual of like the matchup, the versus page, basically, maybe there I'll make my pick and then move into showing the rest of the visuals, you know, of examples of strikes and submissions and stuff. That's something I'm thinking about doing, so maybe I'll put something together for that. We kind of did that with Clark a couple of the times he was on for his betting. We kind of strayed away from that a little bit because he took such a long break from the podcast, but, you know, maybe we'll get back to it soon. Anyway, you're not going to want to miss this fight. Should be a good one to end off before we get that 1 week break. Yeah, that does it for me. Don't forget to check out that UFC Fight Night 228 on ESPN Plus on Saturday. I believe it's at normal time, 7 p.m. for the main card, or 5 p.m. I'm not sure. Let me double check, because I need to know for myself. Don't know if I have. Oh, it's 4 p.m. start for the main event, which, yeah, I guess that's normal for a fight night. It happens a little earlier. It is in Vegas at the fucking Apex, so it's not going to be a ton of fans out in the audience, but it is what it is. So check out the fights. You got BKFC, you got Bellator 299, you got UFC Fight Night 228. Better catch some of that fighting this weekend, because I don't know of a lot going on next weekend. As for me, I'll probably be back next week, because that's what I do. I try not to miss a week, and I'll try to come up with something. I'll be out of town next week for work, So maybe I'll have some time to put something else together. Maybe come up with a little bit of different content for the week since we don't have a lot of fights going on. No UFC. So we'll see what I put together, see what I come up with. Come back next week and check it out and find out what I'm doing. Thanks to anybody who joined in. No action in the chat tonight, so nobody to call out. But yeah. Catch me next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. like always. Don't forget to follow all my social media down there. It's Going Rounds Podcast everywhere. Like, subscribe, notification bell, share it with somebody. Do all that good stuff for me. Please help me grow the channel. Help me get into the algorithm a little more. Get me some more views. That'd be great. I'd appreciate it. But thank you for all the support up to this point. See you next week. I'm out. As long as I get my stuff ready. Yeah, I'm out of here. Peace.